In today's episode, we have Dean Rod Rodriguez, host of the After Action Review podcast, coming right up. Hi, and welcome to Getting to Hire, the show that is helping you, the military member, successfully transition from your military career to your new civilian one. My name is Tony Morrow, and in today's episode, we are speaking with Dean Rod Rodriguez, the host of the After Action Review podcast. In today's episode, we will be speaking about transition, talking about mentoring, and the whole gambit of entrepreneurship and the journey that you take as you begin your military transition and find success on the other side. A quick note for our listeners and viewers, there is a slight mistake at the very beginning of the episode where I finger fumbled. There is a slight video transition, a dip in the audio. You'll hear it, you'll see it. I've tried to mask it out as best I can, but it's at the very beginning of the episode, and the rest is smooth sailing from there. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and without further ado, Dean Rod Rodriguez, the host of the After Action Review. Rod, welcome to the show.
Tony, thanks for having me on, man. This is awesome. Thank you.
So, Rod, I came across your program, your podcast, over LinkedIn. It came up on a search that I was doing. And there was an episode that you had about veteran transition that really caught my attention. So I want to get to that, but just before we do, can you give everybody a quick 2-minute origin story, superhero origin story, as to who Rod Rodriguez is, what you've done, and what you're doing today?
Well, before I begin, I just want to give a shout out to LinkedIn for their hashtags. So just demonstrates that hashtags work, folks. So hashtag your material. So a little bit about me. I'm Rod Rodriguez. So I'm currently a U.S. Army Intel Warrant Officer in the United States Army Reserve. I did 10 years active duty. I started a podcast called the After Action Review. And the show is all about veteran entrepreneurship. So we talk about what's gone right, what's gone wrong, everything in between in the world of veteran business. And that inspired me to actually start another business. And that business is Clear Commo Studios. We're a commercial audio production company that focuses on podcast production for small to medium-sized businesses, not just here in the DC area, but all over the country. So that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned you are an INTO. Is that my understanding is that you were a regular force full-time serving member for a period of time, and now you're in the reserves. It's same occupation the whole way through?
With a very small stint at the very, very beginning. My first 4 years was as an artillery fire direction guy. I'm not even sure if that MOS still exists. 13 Papa was fire direction for the multiple launch rocket system. I did that for the first 4 years, and I was like, okay, I need to figure something else out, because this is as much fun as this is. I didn't see the transition from artillery to the civilian sector. Like, there's not a whole lot of missiles that need to be fired in the civilian sector. So I made that jump into the world of human intelligence, and I've been there ever since.
So as I mentioned at the very top of the show, you have the After Action Review podcast, and you had an episode that particularly caught my attention talking about veteran transition. And so I guess the first question that I always ask is, as a veteran and a person who especially came up in that particular interview, what do you see as the value that veterans bring to the civilian workspace?
So as a veteran, stress is an everyday thing for us. We are constantly under the gun, whether it's for time, for standards. Veterans are, the day that you step foot, whether it's as a Marine, you're putting your feet on those yellow footprints, or if you're an Army soldier, the first day that you're being carted into, and probably in the back of a cattle truck, to your first day of Army basic training, everything is stress. Everything is stress inoculation. So the concept behind the soldier, the Marine, the airman, the sailor, the whole concept behind the training that we do is stress inoculation. So that way, when the proverbial poop hits the fan, we are cool under pressure, cool under fire. And that is a level of training, that is a level of indoctrination to the world of the military life that you just do not find in the civilian sector. So, albeit I think law enforcement probably comes pretty close to that, but I think that doing 4 years, committing yourself to 4 years as a service member, there is a lot that you gain from that stress inoculation. You also learn a lot about structure and about how to get a plan from idea to implementation to execution, and then how to review that plan. And it's not enough to just be successful, but it's also important to analyze and have the proper tools to analyze success, which is one of the reasons I called my show the After Action Review Podcast, because as an Army soldier, the After Action Review is a process where we talk about what was our intent, what actually happened, what went right, what went wrong, and what could we do better next time. And I think a lot of people confuse what went wrong with what we could do better next time, because sometimes what went wrong are things that shouldn't have even been planned for, or shouldn't have been part of the process. And I think that when we talk about what could we do better, those are things that those are topics where we have to check our ego out the door. And that is a very tough thing for some folks to do, especially in the civilian sector, where ego can often play a big part of success. Where in the military, ego definitely has its place. You have to have a certain chip on your shoulder to say, hey, follow me into this situation. But an after action review really requires you to put your ego on hold and open your plan for criticism, for construction. And no matter if you're a staff sergeant or a general, when you put your plan out there and you're like, okay, guys, what could we do better next time? That's growth. That's an opportunity for growth. It's not a perfect system. I've seen AARs just go, the way that you might think they would, especially if somebody is a little higher ranking or has a bit of an ego or whatever. It's not a perfect system, but I think it's a great start.
And it's funny, so the After Action Review podcast, you're in all the interviews that you're doing, you're deconstructing whatever the topic is, but especially the guest. Whether it's I've listened to you interview actors, iconic entrepreneurs, and in this particular interview that we were that I was mentioning, a surface warfare officer dear to my heart, as a naval warfare officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, basically the same occupation. I refer to as Captain Kirk in training. That the being able to critically look at yourself and understand the transition piece. So relating to transition, and taking that after action review lens to the experiences that you've seen reported, that you've seen personally experienced, and as you've seen veterans kind of struggle or succeed in their transition, what do you think are some of the key factors that lead to their success in their military transition, and maybe one or two critical Achilles heels to maybe sabotaging their success as they transition out of the military?
That's a great question. That's a very good question. I've done several episodes. I've done well over 50. I think we're in the 60s maybe, for the After Action Review. And I can tell you that out of all these interviews that I've done, I've got another 10, 15 that never aired. And that's because there were issues with that particular individual's adaptation to business, the way that they perceived business. And I didn't think that was necessarily healthy or even legal in some instances. So I think that what I've seen in terms of success is the successful veteran comes out and acknowledges, I don't know everything. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. I need a team. I need to find other folks who understand where I want to go. Maybe they're there already. That's part of the purpose of the show, is to have a link between successful folks, people who have been there, done that, are still doing it, and veterans right now. So I always encourage vets, hey, if you see a guy on my show, their information is at the bottom of the show notes. Reach out to them. If I got a hold of them, you can get a hold of them, talk to them, ask them for 15 minutes of their time and ask them how, what is their secrets? Not even really what is their secrets, because there's no secrets to success. Another valuable factor for veterans in transition is networking. That is so critical and so overlooked. And I don't mean by, you're going to get a lot of inspiration. And that's not the purpose of a network. A network isn't there to just inspire you and make you feel good. If you want inspiration, go to YouTube. You can look up Gary Vaynerchuk videos and, all these like wonderful sports montages, and they'll get you pumped up. But a network is going to help you facilitate your ideas. It's going to help you figure out where you're going. And they're going to question, why do you want to go there? What is it about this industry, this field, this platform that attracts you? And what are you bringing to the table other than, I'm a veteran? That's not enough. Being a vet is no longer as, I don't want to say as valuable, but it's definitely not as rare as it used to be. And this is something that I tell my special operations folks, my special warfare guys, my elite guys that come out of the military, and they think there's this idea for a lot of them, unfortunately, that I was a Green Beret and I'm going to come out and people will offer me, I'm going to have a bunch of doors open to me because I'm a former Green Beret. And the fact is, well, yes, you are a Green Beret, and yes, you are a highly trained elite warrior, but you're also joining a workforce with thousands of other elite warriors just like yourself who have made that transition out. You are in a saturated market if you think you're going to come out and be a security consultant, or I'll get to consultant in a minute. That's a word that I have a real problem with. But if you're trying to rest on your laurels and to say that I'm going to come out of the military based on only my military experience and I will be successful, you're coming to a rude awakening, and it's going to be painful. And that's why that networking is so important. It's not just about trading cards and shaking hands and be like, let's do lunch. It's about, right? It's about saying, hi, my name is Rod. I'm new to the world of civilian life. I'm new to this particular industry, whatever it is. Can you guide me? Can I borrow you for 10 minutes of coffee every week? And sharing your experience and having a network of people who are going to support you and also challenge you. As an entrepreneur, if you don't have somebody challenging you, you will not succeed. And I just want to give a special shout out to Seda Goff at PenFed's veteran entrepreneurship program. She was both my supporter and my biggest critic. And it's because of her that we were able to laser focus our business, our podcast. And I wish everybody had a Seda Goff. You need somebody to tell you that this idea that you have, this baby that you have in your arms that you think is the prettiest baby in the world, you need somebody to look at you and go, that baby is ugly. It's not what you think. And you need to fix yourself. And but it's that harsh. And you know what? Here's the thing. Veterans are used to it. Veterans are used to having their ideas not work. They're used to criticism. Most vets come out with a pretty thick skin, because you need a thick skin just to get through everyday life living in the barracks, right? You need that. And it is that quality that makes you more prone to success. Now, you asked, what are some hiccups or maybe what are some issues that can lead to failure or not being as successful? And I will tell you the biggest one, and this is the one that I see all the time. It is entitlement. It is the concept that I am a veteran. I am entitled to success. I am entitled to your business. And how dare you not hire me? How, who are you to tell me my experience my experience isn't worth 6 figures a year? It probably isn't. And not everything in the military translates to the corporate life. Even if you're and this is unfortunately a thing that I see from many of my officers coming out. You have a 4-year degree. You were you got out as a captain. or you maybe even you retired and you're like a former colonel and you're like, I deserve these things. I'm entitled to these things. But the fact is that your experience may not translate to what you want. You may have to work hard after you get out because there are civilians who have been working on that same track. You're jumping into another industry, and there are lots of folks who have done nothing but devote themselves to being the COO of a company, or they've devoted themselves to being the vice president of marketing. You may end up, and again, we come back to ego, we come back to a lot of prevailing themes, but you could be a retired sergeant major working for a 23-year-old kid, for all intents and purposes, a kid who has 4 years of experience in marketing, and he's your boss. Now, you may have a marketing degree too, Sergeant Major, but you don't have the experience that this kid has marketing. So if you're smart, instead of complaining and being a keyboard warrior and talking about these damn kids or these millennials, the Snapchat and the Facebook and the, the LinkedIn. I've had several recent interactions with retirees that said to me, why do I need LinkedIn? Like, why do you need a resume? I mean,
that's a deep well to tap into. I want to go back to that one in a second. But you had mentioned in your interview, so for example, talking about entitlement, talking about the skills translation, coming out of the military and being a military veteran and going into this new role. Like you say, you could be older, experienced, and you're going into a new job and you're working for a 20-year-old or someone that you perceive to be, for whatever reason, much less qualified than you. So in the interview that you had, there was a line of questioning that came up talking about, the best way I can describe it is discrimination, whereby corporations were potentially taking advantage of veterans and paying them less for a similar position and kind of getting away with it, as opposed to recognizing veterans for the known value proposition and the HR asset that they are, and rewarding them for that or investing in them based on that. So there seemed to be a point of not conflict in the interview, but it was definitely a sore spot for the for the person you were interviewing, in the sense that the idea that corporate America would be taking advantage of veterans in this way because they know that their pension maybe, or that that they have benefits, and therefore they can't, or they don't have to necessarily give you as much as the equivalent civilian who would be filling that position. So I'm curious, of course, I'll link the specific episode I'm talking about in the description below.
Rachel Cozy. Yes.
But that was a phenomenal interview. Like I said, I was captivated. But now that there's been some time since that interview occurred and you've had some time to reflect on it, what do you think of that particular comment or observation? Is that something you actually see? Is that something that you're hearing from the veteran community? Or is it perhaps, like you were talking about, a conflict of the sense of entitlement and the conflict between a military subject matter expertise integrating into a civilian workplace subject matter expertise, where not all those skills are translatable?
So, Tony, I was having trouble remembering. You alluded to the episode, and finally, I know which one you're talking about. That was with Rachel Cozy.
Yeah.
She is a phenomenal speaker. She spoke from the heart in that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes, to be perfectly honest with you, because we had such a great time sitting and talking. And I'm glad you brought this up, because it is something that I did digest. It is, I made some comments on the fly in that moment, because when you're doing an interview, as you're very familiar with, we have a tendency to become emotionally invested in the story that we're hearing. I heard her story and I was upset. I was appalled by the fact that some companies would take advantage of our military status. But yes, absolutely. I think some companies are doing these things. Is it wrong?
Mm.
Is it immoral? Okay. Folks, if you've been in the military, you know what BAH is, right? That's basic allowance for housing. That means the military gives you a certain amount of money for housing based on wherever you're living. And I don't even think your pay, your rank has anything to do with that. I think it's a flat rate. So if you live near military installations, you'll see, weirdly enough, that the price of an apartment looks remarkably like the amount of BAH you're supposed to be getting. Now, if you drive up the way a couple of miles, maybe to another town, you might find that there's another very similar apartment for a lot cheaper. So why are these apartments allowed to charge you not based on the square footage or the amenities, but hey, it's almost like, how much is rent? Well, how much you got? Okay.
Market forces.
Market forces. If a company is telling a vet that here it is, here's your offer, take it or leave it, are we entitled to more? If my experience rivals that of my civilian counterpart and they're taking advantage of the fact that I'm getting out and I don't have a plan, okay, that sucks. Should you do that? You probably shouldn't if you're a good business, if you've got good morals. I wouldn't do that to somebody, period. Is it good business? Probably not. Is it wrong? I don't think so. I don't think it's wrong. Why? Because whose onus is it to have a plan? It's mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's my onus to have a plan. And I can't put all my eggs in one basket. So if the company is saying, I will hire you for this, and I don't have any other plan, then I'm happy to take that. I have to. It sucks. It's not fair. There's a lot of issues that could possibly go into that in terms of discrimination. A lot of companies understand that vets don't know what they don't know. They don't understand the outside world. I didn't. I thought I did. Here's the thing. I was a plucky W1, W2. I was a plucky E6 when I was thinking about getting out the first time. And I thought I understood the world. And I put a couple of resumes out there. And here's the thing. I didn't really understand what a resume was supposed to look like. I wasn't even sure what job I wanted on the outside. I had a degree. I had these ideas. And nobody was there to say, hey, look, maybe your idea isn't so hot. The military is not good at helping you transition. They give you tools. Even that, let me go back on what I just said. The Army, the military is pretty decent at helping you transition. They are. We, the veterans, are not good at transitioning.
Oh,
that's the problem. We are not good at it. The military will give you a ton of tools, but they're not good at helping you understand what tools are for what and how to use them. It's like, here's a bunch of tools, good luck. When I was going through the transition process, I watched a lot of guys, young men, retirees, medically retired guys that were in the process of getting out. I saw them playing on their phone. I saw them sketching, talking to each other. They couldn't wait to just be done with the Army's transition program. I think it was TAPS or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So to see that, I'm like, well, whose fault is this? I'm taking notes. I'm writing this stuff down, and it was still hard as heck for me. If I had difficulty and I paid attention, what are those guys going through? So I think Rachel Cozy brought up some really good points. And when you listen to her story, you could definitely see where there were some places where her employer was definitely using shady tactics. But I don't think they were illegal. I don't think they were necessarily wrong in some places. I mean, if you're a business and you want to get the very best talent for the lowest price point, that's what you're going to do if you have no scruples. But it's for that story in particular, I encourage people to go listen to the story yourself, make your own conclusions, and then talk about it. And that's what we need. We need to start those conversations.
Well, as part of that interview, you were discussing the I guess the TAPS program, where they were giving presentations. I think in the interview you described it as being a week long, and there was a number of presentations. The last day they gave you all the briefing on all your vet benefits and so on. But that you had like people inside that cadre or inside that class interviewing each other. Essentially, the way it described it is like the blind leading the blind. You had people who were in uniform, who were. So the military is a cultural bubble. We are a highly traditional employment organization that has its own internal ecosystem on how you career advance, how you're successful, and so on. There's a lot of that is potentially translatable, but it is very unique to the military. And sometimes, every military is a little bit different in how they do that. The traits, the skills, even the writing style of how you communicate, instead of a briefing of 10 pages of something like a brick of text, your resume needs to be short, precise, and highly tactical on the skills or the traits that you are highlighting. When it comes to the interview, every interview is going to be different because every interviewee, every position you're interviewing for is going to be unique, is going to be a unique perspective as far as the person who's interviewing you on the other side of the table, one or more people. And what's interesting I find about that is that a lot of these military, and maybe, from your experience in that interview and going through TAPS yourself, when the person who's instructing you has not gone through that experience, when the person instructing you is not a subject matter expert because they haven't lived that experience, they haven't gone through they haven't gone through the threshold of, leaving the bubble and knowing what's on the outside, because your perspective is so distorted when you're inside the military culture. Like you said, I know what I'm going to be doing. In the interview, you even talk about like there's some chiefs that are like, I'm going to go fishing, or people who think they're going to become a consultant and make big money. Yeah. And the reality is when you come on the other side of that is not necessarily like, that is your perception. That is not reality. So
it's not reality.
So
not even close. No.
That is, that is a, I'm sure we could schedule another interview and talk about that perception problem, because we can really dive into that. But I wanted to tap into the tools you were talking about. So you talked about social media, LinkedIn, and so on. One of my observations being in the military, and this is an interesting kind of juxtaposition, Canadian military, U.S. military. In the Canadian Navy, my experience was that social media was highly discouraged for basically OPSEC reasons, right? You don't post on Facebook where you are when you're going to be there, or like telegraph to your family when you're coming home because of security concerns. There are problems or issues with regards to taking photos in certain spaces because, of course, what might be sensitive around you or even the people around you. And so those who used social media in and around their job, it's just a risk that people just didn't bother. Like, I will avoid social media to a certain degree because it's not worth the risk. Mm-hmm. Therefore, people are not necessarily diving in on Facebook or Instagram. And if they are, it's totally on a social, other avenue. It's not professional. And especially, again, with that context of the internal ecosystem of the military, LinkedIn is not encouraged at all. And there's probably a number of reasons for that, but your motivation to develop a LinkedIn profile is kind of superfluous, because, and then for myself, before I got hurt, I was a career guy. You're going to put your head down and you're going to be a lifelong military member, and you're going to, work your way up the ranks, and, that's your thing. LinkedIn doesn't fit into that picture. It's not useful. It doesn't add any value. Again, it as a social media tool, it is merely another point of like risk. As far as, do you say the wrong thing or communicate in the wrong way or whatever it may be. So
I get that. Yeah, I get that. And I understand where folks are coming from when they look at LinkedIn and they say, well, what's it for me? I'm a careerist, or I'm going to do. Okay. So here's the challenge for all your listeners. Go on LinkedIn. If you're not a LinkedIn person and you're in your mindset is LinkedIn is not for me, go on LinkedIn and look up US Cybercom, Cyber Command. You're going to find their commander. You're going to find their XO. You're going to find that they have media relations, and they're talking about all the awesome things that US Cyber is doing. There's no issues with, whatchamacallit, OPSEC. There's no OPSEC issues. Why? Because don't put OPSEC issues. We know what's supposed to go out there. Don't do it. Don't put it out there. It's that simple. I think it is like any other tool.
I think the term is literacy.
It is literacy. Absolutely. 100%. And let me, I'm going to back up here because I like to speak from the entrepreneurial standpoint, because entrepreneurship is very important to me. I believe very firmly that veterans are there's a lot that we have to contribute to the world in terms of the businesses that we can build. We can help other businesses grow. But I want to relate to a quick story. I had a meeting with a former special operator, high level guy, retired. And he says, I'm opening a business. I'm going to start this business. We're going to teach security. We're going to teach this. We're going to teach that. It's going to be great. I said, fantastic, man. What's your website look like? We don't have a website. Why not? Well, because, being out there on the internet, the internet's a scary place. There's a lot of stuff okay, I get it, but you have a business. You need an internet. Okay, so Facebook? Nah, man, Facebook's for kids. Okay, Instagram, are you taking pictures of you teaching shooting and all this stuff? No, why would I don't know how to use Instagram. Okay, are you on LinkedIn? Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm afraid about the people that could find me on LinkedIn or find out what. I'm like, look, man, you cannot operate a business as a spooky person. You have to make the decision whether I'm going to transition to the civilian world and become part of this entrepreneurial sector, or I'm going to be a spooky person and work for other spooky people and just keep my cover going, keep that under wraps. Here's the thing. It is a tool, and you need it to be successful in the new world. Look, if you're still trying to listen to music from an 8-track player, can you? Can you listen to music with an 8-track player? Absolutely, you can. You definitely can. I promise you, some hipster somewhere is putting today's music onto an 8-track and can buy it for $30-$50 because it's cool and it's vintage.
Yeah.
Is it the smart way to do business? No, it's not, because we have a whole new set of tools. And let me tell you, LinkedIn is the beginning. I'm already watching all these other platforms that are growing, that are trying to find people to say, hey, look, we are the next business platform. Come join us. LinkedIn is your digital resume. And here's one more thing I want to talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not Facebook. And I see there are people that are trying to turn it into Facebook. They're putting their political views, religious views. It is not for that. Don't be that guy. What I try and put out there is I try and share articles of value in terms of business. So I am both a podcast host, a podcast producer, but I also work for a company as my 9-to-5, and we're a software company. I'm interested in artificial intelligence, augmented reality. I republish a lot of articles that I see, and I give my 2 cents on it. I jump into conversations that I think are interesting, and I can maybe provide value and gain value from those conversations. That's
specifically on LinkedIn you're talking about.
Specifically on LinkedIn. Now, Facebook is a different animal. Facebook, you have to understand how and what it's there for, what that tool is supposed to be used for, and what it can be used for. So yes, you can go on Facebook and see a bunch of weird white supremacist stuff and a bunch of weird violent stuff. Sure, that's out there. That's called the internet. That doesn't mean you have to be that. It also has a lot of safeguards that you can set up and say, hey, look, I want only my friends to see this, or only my customers to see this. There's a lot of cool things you can do on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat. Folks, you don't need to be 14 to know what Snapchat is. At the very least, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, you don't have to have a Snapchat account. You don't have to advertise on Snapchat. For the love of God, know what Snapchat is.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. You're competing in a world where your competition is going to understand these tools better than you. And to say that I'm a veteran is not an excuse to not understand technology. And to say I'm a 50-year-old, I'm 38 years old, and I Instagram, I Facebook, I LinkedIn. I have a Snapchat account for our podcast. I don't use it, but I know how to use it. So maybe it's not for, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit long-winded, but the last point I want to make is the skills that you acquired as an E4, as an E3, as an E1 are foundational, right? They're used to build your advanced skill set so that as a sergeant major or as a colonel, you understand at the very basic level the soldiering skills. Now, you don't do E1 through E4 stuff as a terminal objective. Well, I know how to dig a foxhole. My soldiering is done. That's not the point. You're learning how to dig a foxhole in relation to combat, in relation to, creating a fighting position, how to dig trenches, there's a lot of different skill sets involved in there. So think of social media and your first foray into social media as your skill set level 1. And what might happen is maybe this idea of this business of yours isn't going to work. Or maybe you're learning how to use Snapchat and you're Snapchatting with your kids. You can start a Facebook Messenger group with your family so that way everybody knows when you're going to be home late, or if your wife needs to put out information to the whole family about what's going on today or whatever. Those are foundational skills. So here's what you're going to do. Learn how to use these tools. And then when you go after that next job, bring those tools into your resume. And that's skill set. People are interested in that now. They're looking at you and they're saying, well, the first thing I want to do is I want to look at Mr. Rodriguez's LinkedIn page. What does that look like? What kind of information does he put out? Is he writing articles? Is he a subject matter expert in his field that he professes to be? Because LinkedIn, Facebook, they allow you to post your own articles. So you can self-publish, and that can establish you as a subject matter expert, a podcast, a YouTube show. All of these are things that establish you as an expert. So Mr. Tony Morrow over here, this is his show today. Now, what happens if somebody watches this show from CBS, NBC, and they're like, wow, Tony knows how to interview and the production quality is really good. Let's reach out to Tony and see if he wants to host a show 6 a.m. on Sundays, national, syndicated. Oh, wow. But he's bringing that skill set, and you had to learn it one day, the first time he ever started YouTube. And that's where it starts. So don't let that stuff scare you. Take it as a level 1 basics foundation.
I love these interviews because this one is going long, and I like it.
Sorry.
I like it because, so for example, I wasn't initially thinking about diving into the social media tools in a big way, but like you were describing, when it comes to your essential soldiering skills, social media is, if you look at it from a warfare perspective, because we are all veterans, we have experience in war. They are weapons of war to be used on the battlefield, and the battlefield for you at this time as a veteran on the other side of the transition process, or on the other side of releasing, your mission, your objective, your battle to fight is to get the next job, to create your next purpose, to engage in your next career. The weapons of war that you will be using are no different than the various, the 50 cal machine gun that just pounds lead down range, or the SM-2 missile that's going to, well, I'm dating myself, SM-2 missile, anti-air, close-in weapon system.
They're tools. Yeah.
They're all tools. And in the context of, like, for example, if you have an individual who doesn't know what Facebook, or not even isn't aware of it, but doesn't know how to use it, the difference, if you look again from this warfare background, you look at any example when new technologies were applied on the battlefield and look at the ability to leverage and the capability gap that existed. Key point, World War II and the Blitzkrieg, the employment of the tank, a new piece of technology and its way, understanding it and how to implement it. That was the critical element of success to the German push in the beginning of World War II, their ability to use armor. Patton was a huge proponent of armored warfare, obviously, and he became an expert at it, and his success was driven by that fact. You can look at the introduction of air power with regards to World War I, and then, of course, World War II, and the way it exists today. I mean, the United States is able to project power based on air power, based on or deployed on aircraft carriers. So understanding our background, a military background, and understanding the weapons of war and the tools and the way you're able to leverage them, and how advantageous it is to use a special operations operator in a certain environment, an F-22 Raptor in another, a close-in weapon system in another example. The same thing exists here. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you need to become familiar, depending on what your objective and your goal is, and if it is to become employed and to become professionally represented in the world, you need to learn the tools and understand how to, or become literate in those tools. If it's LinkedIn, at least literate. Yes, you need to become a practitioner of social media, if only because imagine trying to sell something if you don't know how to use a telephone. Imagine trying to communicate on the battlefield using semaphore versus the guy who's got a radio. The advantage that these technological tools, the social media tools, give you when it comes to this ability to deploy professional skill sets, to advertise your subject matter expertise, and to establish the brand of you in a professional space is unprecedented. And I mean, we could go on talking about the benefits of it, but the bottom line is you need to become literate. And
I can show you something. I can show you something, and this is true. This is real life. This happened to me last month. I went to a networking event, and I have business cards, and I handed one out, and I said, "Do you have a card?" And the guy looked at me like I was insane. He was like, he looked at my card, then looked at me, and he was like, "This is cool, man. Like, this is cool." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Retro, like cards. I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm looking at him like, "What's wrong with my card?" And he goes, "Are you on LinkedIn?" I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Here, tag me."
Yeah.
This is my LinkedIn QR code. And that's what he wanted. He wanted that. And right off the bat, we linked in. Now, later, I went back and I saw the invitation. I approved it. And I shot him a quick message like, "Hey, man, great meeting at this networking event. If there's any, we're doing business. We're actually doing business now because of LinkedIn." He was able to quickly look through all my experience, and he saw that this is the guy for the job that I need help with. Boom, just like that. That is business. That's networking in 2019. Now, I do want to hit on one more thing, and that is the concept that you need to be out there. You need to be Gary Vee, that you need to be out there documenting everything. That's just not true. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. And let me tell you something about Gary Vee. Gary Vee stayed quiet for about 20 years before he ever made a video, before he ever came out there and talked about business. In reality, you don't have to be out there 100%. You don't have to be a social media personality. You can be very successful just doing your job and learning. And
He's
along
the first
the way,
one to say, not everyone is the extrovert that he is. You
they're
double
not.
down on your assets, on the skills that you're good at. And for him, he's got a good mouth and he can talk a good game, and he's good on camera. And
That's
You know,
100%.
you've got a great voice, that silky smooth baritone.
Thank you very much.
But that is a strength that you have. So you double down on that, and you leverage that by having a podcast. It's the same thing in this context. I know it's funny. I don't know if this is your experience in your military experience, but as a naval warfare officer, oftentimes we're a jack of all trades. You have to be a generalist to be able to be to have a degree of expertise to understand and assess subject matter experts coming at you from engineering, combat engineering, warfare perspective, and then be able to deploy the tools that they're offering you in an effective way. In this case, it's less about being a generalist, but rather dialing in on, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about turning your weaknesses into strengths. Yes. However, you need to dial in on your strengths and leverage that capability, that natural talent, that whatever it is.
You need to know what your strengths are. You need to know what your strengths are. Most people don't. They think they know what their strengths are, but those strengths are actually based on other things. And I highly encourage people to go to check out Suit Soldier. Suit Soldier is another podcast by a friend of mine. He's really good. He talks a lot. His focus is mostly transition. My focus has been military entrepreneurship. In the course of our conversation, him and I talked a lot, and actually that podcast will be coming out very soon. We talked, and one of my problems when I got out, my transition problem was I jumped right into the same industry that I was in when I was in the military. So I went from MI to a civilian contractor in the MI world, and there I am sitting behind a desk doing PowerPoints, and I hate my life. I'm very unhappy, and I'm trying to figure out why am I miserable. And him and I talk, and he goes, well, what do you like doing? And I said, I love doing my podcast. My podcast excites me. My business excites me. And he says, well, Rod, here's what happened. You got out of the military, but you never transitioned. There's a difference. Getting out is not the same as transitioning. And transitioning does not take place overnight. Just because you have a DD-214 in hand doesn't mean, well, I've transitioned to civilian life. No, that means you're in the civilian life, but that doesn't mean that you have transitioned. I didn't transition. It took me years to honestly have the courage to quit doing contract work, to completely separate myself from the government, from MI, from that lifestyle. I'm still in the reserve, and maybe some might argue that's my safety. Maybe that's my floaty that I'm holding on to just in case, because I like it, but I love teaching soldiers, so I'm going to hold on to it. But I transitioned completely away from the Army, and now I'm in the civilian world where I'm doing business development, and I'm scared. Every day I wake up and I'm stressed. I'm scared because this is not my element. This is not the waters I'm used to swimming in. But I have great people that I work with. In fact, my entire sales team are vets. So they're vets who made that transition, and that's my network, and they're holding my hand along the way. They're like, let me show you what the completely different world of talk about profit margins, losses, licensing. What is SaaS? Software as a solution. What does that mean? It's frightening. It is a truly frightening experience to go through what I consider real transition. And that real transition piece is painful. It's really easy to stay in the lanes that you're used to, staying in the water that you know how to swim in. Take the chance, go out there and do something different if that's what you want to do. But at the end of the day, don't complain about these damn millennials and these kids and the Snapchat, because you're just making yourself look like a cranky old fart. Go out there and be part of the conversation. And if you're blaming kids for your woes, just remember, those are your kids. You're that generation that helped raise them. You're that generation that was part of their development. We're literally eating the cake that we baked. So as a veteran, be part of a solution, not a problem. Put the keyboard to the side, pick up Twitter, and explore. Work on your LinkedIn. And if anybody out there is curious about, does my LinkedIn look okay? What do you think? Find other folks. Again, build your network and ask them, invite them over. Hey, check out my LinkedIn. What does that look like? And if you want to find a different job in a new field, guess what you're going to do with LinkedIn or get involved with groups like Bunker Labs. Bunker Labs is the reason I got into the WeWork residents, the WeWork Veterans and Residents program. So
I want to dive into that.
I actually have my office. Yeah,
I want to dive into that, but let's take a before we go down that road, because
Sure.
this is the entrepreneurial road for you. And I think so. You're an entrepreneur. You're part of you're engaging in transition, and as you say, you work with a number of vets as part of your sales team and so on. So let me ask you: do you think military veterans, are natural entrepreneurs?
No. Nobody's a natural entrepreneur. I disagree with Gary Vaynerchuk wholeheartedly when he says, "Are you a pure entrepreneur? Are you born with entrepreneurship?" Okay. Are you a born baseball player? Are you a born football player? No. You may have been born with attributes that make you a great athlete, but that doesn't mean that you were born to play baseball. It means that you were born, maybe both your parents are athletic and you inherited that, alpha, that fast twitch muscle fiber, and you were just born to be an athlete, but you have to find the sport that you love. You have to find the thing that just drives you. So mom and dad might have been football players, but you're going to grow up to be an MMA champion. That's just life. Are we natural? Are we built for entrepreneurship? No. Some of us are built for intrapreneurship. Some of us are built to help companies become super successful. Again, we go back to Gary Vaynerchuk. The number 2 guy in Facebook is still making way more money than 90% of the entrepreneurs out there right now. And he's the number 2 guy in Facebook.
So entrepreneurship is a tag word or a keyword that people use or, understand. And you use the word intrapreneurship. And I don't think a lot of, especially military vets, understand what that means. So as an entrepreneur, you're going out there and you're creating something on the exterior of, a traditional employment organization. All your activities, your energy is about building something external. Intrapreneurship, I think you really hit a nail on the head there, because military training, military conditioning, military culture is an introspective pattern of behavior. So if you excel in a military career in a military environment, I would argue you are a natural intrapreneur, meaning that you're
learning entrepreneurial skills for sure.
Yeah,
everybody.
You're trained and conditioned to be that, because you're taking the skills that you hopefully were successful at, and you can easily translate them to a larger organization and apply them to that organization's growth. Like you say, number 2 at Facebook, incredibly wealthy,
still successful. Here's something that we don't think about very often when it comes to entrepreneurship, and that is in the military, very rarely are you given the ability to do something new. Very rarely are you ever said, hey, Captain so-and-so, go out and build a new program that will innovate and change the way we attack this problem. That doesn't happen. I mean, it does, but it's super rare. Super rare.
Hundreds of years of tradition getting in the way of progress.
Yeah. And that, you could still look at the Army and go, that's dumb, and that's dumb, but that's the way we've always done it. But what the Army's really good at is to say, here's my organization. I want you to make this better. So I'm going to bring in my talented E6s, my talented E7s, and they're going to be my management team for the worker bees. And I'm going to bring in my C-suite executives, who are going to have underneath them a stable of young go-getting officers who want to make their OERs look great. And the only way to do that is to make the organization look great. So this is intrapreneurship. Veterans are great entrepreneurs. This is something I've been telling folks. Look, you don't have to go out and start a business. You do not have to be. It's hard. Let me just preface this by saying this sucks. today, this is great. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you, Tony, right now. Today, I'm having one of my worst days ever. And I was actually considering texting you and telling you, can we reschedule? Because I was having a really crappy day in terms of business, in terms of trying to balance all the things. I literally have a complete whiteboard to my right here that is completely full of the things that have to happen before the day is over. And I don't know how I'm going to do this. No idea how I'm going to do this. I've got clients that need the work done. I am held accountable to my clients. So anybody that thinks you're a business owner, you work for yourself, no, I do not. I literally have like 10 bosses right now, and I have to satisfy every single one of them. So it sucks. There are some days that it's like, I love what I'm doing, but days like today, I'm just like, why did I do this to myself? This is not fun. As an entrepreneur, you can still take those skill sets and go to Microsoft. You can go to Deloitte. You can go to a startup and say, hey, guess what? I've got skills and I want to make this company successful. What's my incentive? And here's what's cool. Sales is something that a lot of veterans don't understand, can be beneficial to them. The idea that you can earn as much as you're willing to work for. So if you throw yourself 24/7, like we did in the military, we ate, slept, lived, breathed the military. If you bring those principles to a company and you say, I'm going to bring that level of dedication to Microsoft, I'm going to rock that Microsoft patch on my shoulder, you're a force multiplier. They will have never seen anything quite like you. And this is the power of the veteran. So are we natural at doing anything? Absolutely not. And to be honest with you, and let's call this for what it is. Some veterans suck.
Yes.
I'll say it. Come get me. Some of y'all out there are lazy. Some of you are terrible soldiers. You know who you are. And you're not going to succeed. And you're still entitled, and you will not succeed. And you're going to blame it on everyone else, and you're going to build this cross upon which you will crucify yourself. And it's called, I'm a veteran. I can't do these things. Nobody helped me. In some of those instances, yes, there will be some real cases where maybe nobody did help you and you had good intentions. But for a lot of them, I can't help you. That's on you. You didn't pay attention. You didn't try. You didn't go out. You know what? I was working on my bachelor's degree in Iraq, turning papers in, working till 2 a.m, waking up at 6 a.m, because I knew I wanted to get this degree. I wanted to be successful when I got out, while a lot of other folks were playing games. And right now, there are veterans who got out and they're just as good at Fortnite as their kids. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Don't blame your lack of success. And then you're like, well, I don't want to use LinkedIn. What you're saying is, I don't want to learn. I don't want to be successful. So you tell me which company wants to hire a veteran who has no desire to be better, to learn more, to learn something new, and will rest on the laurels of what they've done. You're a crappy employee. Enjoy working as the greeter at Walmart. And that might be disparaging to the greeters at Walmart.
Well, if you are a leader in the military, extreme ownership is part of the game, in the sense that everything that happens that's wrong is your fault. Everything that happens that is good is your people's credit. You support them, you own that. You have to have that certain characteristic when it comes to being successful in your progression. However, whatever trade you're in, yes, we may not have been innovative in creating something brand new, but the pace of learning and the fact that you are constantly learning is an asset that you have as a military veteran. Those are assets. Those are like credits to your account. But if you are lazy, if you are entitled, if you are playing the victim and not engaging and not leaning in and not having the tenacity and the drive and the energy that makes us as military veterans, as soldiers, as sailors, as airmen and women, that is the quality, that is the unlimited liability that makes us special, that makes us a demographic to be recognized. And if you are an individual who is, as you say, lazy, leaning back, shying away, I don't want to say that, that you lack bravery, but you need to have courage.
I will. I'll say it. You're lacking bravery.
You need to have the courage to engage the world. There is always going to be things that are new and unknown. And that is where we thrive. That is where we
treat
have
yourself
thrive.
like a business.
Sorry, say again?
Treat yourself like a business. Treat yourself like TonyMorrow.com. Treat yourself like RodRodriguez.com. I am a business. Treat yourself like one. Your business is going to die unless you do something with it. Your business has to be on the cutting edge. Your business has to understand the world around it. If people treated their lives like a business, like if I don't do something, I'm going under, then I think you would see a lot more people wake up and say, what do I need to be successful? What do I need to be? What do I need to do to be successful as RodRodriguez.com or, Rod Rodriguez LLC? If you look at Amazon, look at every major successful business, they hurt. They sucked at the very beginning. Everything was painful. Look at the pictures of Jeff Bezos sitting in an office by himself with the word Amazon spray painted on a piece of plywood that they shot onto the ceiling, or I'm sorry, onto the wall. And this guy is sitting there and he just looks depressed. It's like 2 a.m. Read the stories behind the most successful companies and make that your life. Make that into an analogy of you. So if you're sitting at home and you're watching YouTube, you're watching this show, and you're just not sure about what you're going to do, think of yourself as a business, and maybe it's time for you to pivot. Maybe you need to understand what the word pivot means. Maybe you need to go learn a little bit about lean startups and understand what are the concepts behind the leans. What is a lean startup? Why do I need to know about that? Because I'm telling you, if there's one thing I've learned about entrepreneurship, there's one thing I've learned about life in general, talking to every one of my veteran guests, is simply this: it is a lifestyle change. It is about you as a human being, you as a person. You're going to learn more about you as an entrepreneur than you will anything else. There are principles behind all of this that make you a better human, a better father, a better mother, a better son. You're going to learn a ton about gratitude. You're going to learn a ton about success as a team. You think you knew a bit in the military, and then you come out here and you're building all these networks and you're like, oh my God, these moments of success are completely due to the fact that I met these people. Right place in the right time isn't luck. It's putting yourself at a lot of different places and a lot of different times, and one of them is going to be the right one. But you're never going to find it if you're not trying. If you're not going out there and talking to Bunker Labs, if you're not out there going to these Bunker Brews or a networking event. Look, man, here in DC, we have these, there's tons of networking events. Like, hey, come have a coffee, meet new people. Let's do it. Let's do it. Grab a battle buddy and be like, hey, wingman me here. Let's go down there and just see what these people are about. Make a business card that just says you know what? So I got one right here, and I'm going to give a shout out to my buddy, Dave Atlee. This is his business card, and it just says Dave Atlee. That's him. That's just his name. It tells us that he's a lieutenant colonel, retired, and then it's got his information on the back and a phone number for you to reach him and his email address. No business. That's not a business. That's not his business. He's got his own thing that he does.
Personal brand.
It's his personal brand. He treats himself like a business. So when he goes and he meets new people, he's like, hi, I'm Dave Atlee. If you need anything, call me. That's it. That's you're creating an opportunity in the future for you. And so many veterans won't do that. They won't do that because they're like, well, networking feels gross. As opposed to what?
Yeah.
As opposed to what? Digging ditches? Did that feel gross when you were sitting in 115 degrees outside digging a hole? Because I promise you, everybody that was doing that was thinking, I can't wait to not do this. And now that they're not doing this, they're afraid, and that's fear, lack of bravery, that keeps them from making that stupid business card that cost you $20 on Vistaprint.
So you mentioned Bunker Labs, and you are part of the Veterans in Residence program. And
Yes.
so as a Canadian veteran here in wonderful Victoria, British Columbia, I have no idea what Bunker Labs is, and I've never been exposed to this Veterans in Residence program. And I saw posting about it on LinkedIn with you, a friend of ours, Rich, and I want to find out more. So again, in the context, of course, entrepreneurship, building your brand, you as a business, what is the Veteran in Residency program, and how or what is Bunker Labs, and how does that play into it?
So Bunker Labs is a nonprofit national organization here in the U.S. And to my knowledge, they don't care if you're a British vet, a Canadian vet. If you're a vet, period, they want to be able to help you launch your business. And part of it is an education process. So if you go to bunkerlabs.org, there's a lot of really interesting tools that you can tap into. And there is probably a Bunker Labs chapter near you. And if there isn't, start it. That's that simple. If you're not, well, where do I start? Well, just start it. Sometimes you just have to do it and learn it along the way. Build your plane in flight. We've done it before. This is the time for you to do it. Make yourself a leader, step forward. If there is, go do their Bunker Lab brew, their Bunker Brews, which is like have a beer, meet some new people, take a business card, or turn on your LinkedIn on your phone, have your QR code out there, and just network, meet new people. Look, I've got hundreds of connections. I don't use them all, but they're there. You'd rather have them, not need them, than wish you had it and don't. So that's part of the networking piece. So Veterans in Residence is a program sponsored by Bunker Labs, powered by WeWork. So WeWork is a co-working space company here in the U.S. as well. I think they're not in the U.S. They're all over the world. I think there's a WeWork in India and China and whatever. But it is a co-working space where you can rent some office space, and now you're in an office full of other entrepreneurs, other businesses. You can all network, talk, cross-talk, maybe work together on some projects. But Veterans in Residence gives a tribe or a cohort of veterans with businesses in office space in DC's DuPont Circle from which they can work from, which, let me tell you, is a game changer. It is a game changer. When I bring a client to WeWork and they walk up it's this beautiful building in DC, they come up to the 11th floor and they see the WeWork space, and there's like all the amenities, and I show them our office, and like, this is beautiful. This is great. It gives your business a sense of legitimacy. You're not just a guy working out of your home office trying to make things work. You're out there, you have a network, you have support. And one of the coolest things that Bunker Labs does is it gives you mentors. There are mentors in the Bunker Labs community that you can say, hey, look, I don't understand how to do a financial sheet. Can you walk me through it? And they'll help you. I don't understand how to put together a business plan. There's modules that they've built, and there's actually a Facebook program. I think it's called Bunker Labs. Oh, geez, it escapes me. They used to be called, they had another name for it. It used to be called like the Bunker in a Box, but they changed it. But it's an actual program run on Facebook through a Facebook message. Again, get on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, and every week they're proposing business questions to you, and you're exploring your business idea with other folks. And this is one of the things that I've been telling them to do is like bring entrepreneurs. Bring an entrepreneur, bring somebody that works for Microsoft into these programs, and they can look at what you're doing and be like, hey, I really like that idea. How can I adopt that and bring it back to Microsoft? How would you like a job at Microsoft? How can there's a lot of really cool things that come from this type of network. And working with Bunker Brews, I've been Bunker Labs. I've been with these folks for well over 2.5 years, almost 3 now. And I've done podcasts with them. They were some of my first guests on the show. I met Seda Goff through them. Emily McMahon from Capital Post. Shout out to Capital Post. They're another company down here in DC that they work with veterans. I went through a program called the the Capital Post Startup School. And it was an 8-week program, I think, where we sat once a week. We met all these entrepreneurs and we sat with Seda Goff, Emily McMahon, and they took us from the idea to execution. And then we had a startup. It was like a contest where it was like a little startup cash. But here's the funny thing. I pitched, I lost. I walked off the stage sad. I was like, oh, I suck, right? I had 3 people come up to me that night. I would love my company to start a podcast. How much do you charge?
Boom.
I walked out of there with 2 new clients and a third that were actually, they've come around and they're like, yeah, we're ready to do this. Boom is right. Boom is absolutely right. If you want explosive results, you have to be primed to explode. The only way to prime yourself is to be around the right people, the right ideas, and you have to get out there and do it. So we have a beautiful office here. I wish you could come visit next time. If you come to DC, you come check it out, man. It's fantastic. And every 6 months, I believe, they do another cohort. So we just started, or we're doing a launch party April 3rd. I want to say April 3rd. But if you're interested, anybody in the DC area, please come check it out. We're going to be out there. We have some wonderful stuff going on. But yeah, come check. You can see on my LinkedIn at Rod Rodriguez at LinkedIn. I'll send you my post stuff, and you can throw in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's I mean, the support, the benefits, the network, the community. That's the kicker. Like,
yes,
one of the things that we lose, and I don't know if it's different. Again, every element's a little bit different. When you're in the Navy and in a ship, there's a community in a ship. Depending on the size of the ship, in the size of the ship's company, there's an identity, there's a culture, there's a sense of camaraderie in that unit, in that ship. And I imagine that is the same whether you're in a platoon, a brigade, company, what have you. And when we transition, you lose so much of that. You lose, every day you showed up. You were in uniform, you were amongst other people in uniform, and you were working towards a common goal with people of a common trade. And when you release or you transition, you lose all that. You may keep in touch with some of the folks that you used to work with, but it's different.
It's not the same.
Yeah, you're no longer in uniform. You're no longer in the circle of activity that they are normally part of. Just think of how many times you talked shop. You can't really talk shop anymore because in a very short period of time,
there's no shop.
Exactly. Your stuff is dated. Hey boys, you remember when? And it was 6 months ago. And they're like, yeah. And then last week this thing happened, and it's different. So being able to create that community where you have that mutual support, where everybody is working in the same environment. You're able to tap into different people's expertise as mentors, or maybe you're a mentee, or like you have a mentee and you're the mentor. Like, for example, if someone was going to start a podcast in the office that you work with, WeWork, they would be foolish not to ask your opinion, your recommendation, your advice.
Look, Rich Cardona, who introduced us, Rich Cardona, he introduced the 2 of us, and he's doing his shows. He does. He's primarily a video guy. Him and I sat down for 2 hours one day, and we just talked about audio. I gave him all my recommendations. And here's the thing. I don't sell information. I sell services. So anybody watching this that wants to know how to start a podcast, email me, rod@clearcommo.com. I will gladly talk on the phone with you for an hour and tell you what equipment to use, how it works, yada, yada. It's not hard. What's hard is the editing. What's hard is the music. What's hard is building a podcast for a company who wants a certain sound. That's a service that I offer. That's what people pay me for, not the information. I'll tell you whatever you want to know about a podcast. What's cool about the Veteran Residence Program is exactly what you just said. We create a new family. It's an opportunity for you to engage with like-minded people. Rich Cardona does videos. We've got a fitness guy who's starting a fitness gym, and he's got this fitness idea. a remote professional assistant. We have a nonprofit that helps law enforcement and PTSD sufferers and military folks. We have a baker, I believe. At one point, I think we were working with a t-shirt company guy. You name it, it's here. And here's the thing. I learn from every single one of them. Every single one of them. I've learned something about business, about myself, about audio. They present unique challenges that no one would have brought to me before. That's what it's all about. And here's one thing I will say about your idea of like, yeah, you do lose a lot when you get out and you have a business idea. Unfortunately, it will be the people that you love that will crap on it the most because they love you. They want you to be successful, and a business is scary. A business is risky, and you're going to hear a lot of people say, "Are you sure you want to do that? That doesn't sound very profitable. Why don't you go take this job? Or why don't you go do this? Why don't you go do that?" Yes, they're trying to look out for you, but you can't listen to them. You have to take, sometimes entrepreneurship is a lonely road. It's a very lonely road. I am very, very blessed. I'm very thankful that I have a spouse who has joined me on the entrepreneurship road. In fact, there's a little desk back here where she works from, right there. And although we're in the same room and we're working for hours, she might as well be on the other side of the world. We have to make time for each other, and she supports me. I support her on her entrepreneurship endeavor. But you have to surround yourself with people who understand what you're doing. Accept criticism, but don't let it slow you down. Just move forward. Just do what you're doing. And that's what Bunker Labs does. And it's not just Bunker Labs. There's a lot of great organizations out there. Get in touch with your Small Business Administration. Get in touch with the SCORE people. And in the US, get in touch with your SCORE people. They will help you build businesses. They will help you figure out all the paperwork, and they will put you in touch with, hey, we're having a networking event. Go meet them. Who cares? If you're a t-shirt screen printer and you meet a popcorn lady, guess what? How about we do a joint thing? I'm going to make you t-shirt. I'm going to make popcorn lady t-shirts. And when I set up my t-shirt stand at this swap meet, I'm going to give me 20 bags of your stuff and I'll sell them for you. And then I'll put your business out there. Look what's happening. Look what's happening. All of a sudden, two businesses have nothing to do with each other. They found magic. Now, what happens when cross promotion, and what happens when somebody comes to buy your t-shirt, says, "This is the best popcorn I've ever had." Turns out I'm a food manufacturer. I want to buy this company. That can happen. That can happen. It happens all the time. You have to set that's a moment that you're setting up success. You're setting yourself up for success.
There's I use the metaphor of stirring the pot, in that all these activities, these efforts, this energy that you're putting out there, you're trying to create opportunities. And so going back to one of the things we mentioned before, if you're a person who leans back, sits back, tends to shy away from things, and you're not investing energy, you're not applying yourself to the situation that is you, then you're not going to be applying energy to the equation. You're not going to be stirring the pot. You're not going to be adding any heat and light to that situation. The more you invest, and you know what? You may put a lot of heat and light. You may stir a lot. You may roll the dice a lot of times, and you'll never roll sixes. But eventually something will come up. Maybe you're doing it 10, 20, 30 times, whatever. Oh, this is killing me. And then boom, all of a sudden, double sixes. And you'll never, it's cliche to say that you'll never know unless you try. But
it's all cliche, Tony. It's all cliche. It's all cliche. Look, go on YouTube and find business motivation. What are they going to tell you? Keep trying. Go out there. You can do it. I'm Gary V. And if you're not, blah, 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 blah. It's all. They once asked Gary V, they said, "Hey, do you have anything actual practical? Like, Anything practical that isn't like woo woo, make you feel good. And he said, yeah. And he gave him an idea. Here's the thing. When it comes to business, entrepreneurship, transition, are there practical things? Absolutely. The problem is there's a lot of them. There's a lot of practical advice that you can give somebody. If somebody calls me up and says, I need inspiration to build a podcast, I can give you all the inspiration you want. If you call me and say, hey, I have 200 hertz that keeps bleeding into my audio, how do I fix that? Now we're getting into a technical question, and I can answer that too. But let me tell you, it's not going to be as woo-woo, and it's not going to be as cool and as feel-good as the other stuff. It's all cliche. All of it. It's all cliche. Whether you're stirring pots, whether you're starting fires, or whether you are the storm of entrepreneurship, it's all cliche. And don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. A lot of folks will sit there, a lot of veterans, we're very skeptical people. We're very hard about letting folks influence us. We look at stuff like, that's stupid. That's silly. That's gimmicky. Okay. But you know what? Sometimes you need gimmicky. Sometimes you need a dose of Gary Vee. Sometimes you need a dose of Tony Robbins. Sometimes you need a dose of Jack Welch, or Frank Cardone. I think Frank Cardone. I can't remember the guy's name, but sometimes you need that, and that's okay. That's all right. Just whether we're talking about stirring the pot or lighting fires, just freaking do it. That's it. Go out there, network, stir that pot, man. You're not going to have soup unless it's hot. You're not going to have soup unless it's stirred. You're not going to have soup unless you throw in all the ingredients. Go out there and freaking do it. That's it. Entrepreneurship, it's literally putting yourself out there.
Throw the dice.
Roll the dice, man. Pick your gimmick, run with it, and make it yours. I'll tell you what, to this day, I still turn on Gary Vee. I've seen the same video 1,000 times. Sometimes I still need to hear somebody tell me it's going to be all right. You're going through a rough patch. If you're not hurting, if you're not stressed out, you're not on the right path. When everything is nice and calm, that's when I look around and I start worrying, like, what am I doing wrong? This is not normal. So today, talking to you in the middle of my own storm reminds me that I'm on the right path. I am stressed out. I'm freaking out right now. But that's good. That's good, because Rod.com, me as a human being, I'm learning, I'm adapting, and I'm using all the skill sets, every skill set that I learned from the military, from rucking for 30 miles, hurting, sweating, wondering when this was going to be over, to, sitting in front of PowerPoint presentations and just racking my brain and wishing this was over. All of that is making me successful today, because I can look at this board and I'm not going to shutter the I'm not going to shutter the windows. I'm not going to quit today. After this interview's over, I'm going to go for a short run. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get on this thing.
Get on it.
That's it.
Well, Rod, I got to say, so thank you so much for what has turned out to be a phenomenal conversation. We've explored so many things, from military transition to the experience and the thriving exploration of becoming an entrepreneur, and of course the challenges of that as well. I know I am looking forward to our after action review, and for all of you out there, please feel free. In the notes below, there will be a link to the episode we referenced with regards to military transition, but also you can look it up on where you find your latest podcasts. You can find the After Action Review with Rod Rodriguez. You listen to his silky smooth tones that will just be the most comfortable, euphoric experience when it comes to getting the information that you actually need. The actors, the entrepreneurs, the military veterans going through transition, who will be able to share their experience with you. And of course, Rod sharing his experience as well. Rod, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. And this is a real pleasure. And it's really cool to be on camera as opposed to just speaking into a dark room. This is different. And I like it. Thank you.
Thanks again to Rod for such a fantastic interview. You can catch the After Action Review podcast everywhere that you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it may be. So feel free to look that up. Give Rod's podcast a listen. You'll find the information in there invaluable. As for this show and Getting to Hired, looking forward to seeing you on the next one, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.